Welcome back, everybody, to the Marketing Rules podcast, and I am joined by Liz Lembke for round two, kind of like a festive version of our what recruiters can learn from ad kind of decade and ad movie or something in that space, basically. If you haven't listened to our first kind of round, it was what recruiters can learn from 80s movies. I think actually one of mine for today came up before, because I think there's a bit of a crossover. Now I'm just looking at my list, but I may have come up for another kind of bunch of spurious reasons that abstractly connect Christmas movies to what recruiters should be doing.
Do tell, James.
Yeah. Liz, if anybody doesn't know you or your work, yeah. I mean, what have they been doing? Where
good
have they
question. Been? I mean, come on, really.
Exactly.
That is a question to be asked. Yeah.
But maybe let's kind of give everybody a quick reminder of what you do, why you do it, and why you've got an American accent, but actually you're in Germany somewhere.
Because we like to trip people up, James. That's kind of our game. All right. So hi, everybody. I'm Liz Lembke, or for this edition, the DJ talent elf on the shelf. I'm founded Transforming Talent, which is basically a virtual and also face-to-face consulting, basically doing anything in regards to talent, be it learning, be it talent succession, building, being organizational design to employer branding. So basically anything that encompasses talent, it's kind of what is in my wheelhouse and what I love to do. So I am based out of Germany because I went over here for school, and then they told me that I could go to school for $50 a semester. I'm like, yes. So yeah. And that 1 year has extended. I won't say how many years it's extended, but quite a few. Yeah. So that's why the American accent here in Germany. And my why is that we spend a lot of time at work. And we're basically looking to be fulfilled at work around the impact we have, the relationships that we're able to create, and how we get to grow. And quite often we lose sight of that in the midst of the things we do. And I help organizations and HR and leadership teams kind of focus back in on how do we create fulfilling work that really makes a difference to what we're trying to accomplish as an organization.
So if anybody's listening and that's their bag and they're having trouble with any of that kind of stuff, which we all are, so I urge you to make contact, to reach out to Liz, because she doesn't know about 80s movies. She knows a lot more. But let's kind of move on to Christmas movies for our festive edition. Go on. You interrupted me. Go on. Tell me.
So yes, I have said that I'm going to interrupt you with a bunch of puns throughout this podcast, and that one was going to be we're not going to make a naughty or nice list. We're just going to get that Santa list that you can go to Liz, and I'll help you out.
Okay, that's one. That's the first one in. Someone will get a prize if they get all of them by the end of the podcast, basically. So this is a festive edition of what recruiters can learn. So what recruiters can learn from Christmas movies. Now, there is going to be an obvious 80s slant. I think on most of mine, they're 80s movies, and I would imagine I think one of them is borderline. It's borderline, right? But they are all definitely Christmas movies. I checked it on the interweb and everything, that are all definitely Christmas movies.
Ben, I mean, if interweb and Rotten Tomatoes gave you the boost, You totally know you're on the right track.
Exactly.
Get that sleigh bell ringing.
Exactly. I need like a soundboard to kind of just to sound in kind of like sleigh bells and stuff like that. Exactly. When we get some new sponsors for the podcast, anybody listening, happy to have that chat. I'll upgrade to a soundboard so I can kind of bring in some of those kind of sound effects next time for the next version. Okay, so Liz, enough of me speaking. What is your first movie and the reasons what you we as recruiters can learn from this festive movie?
I love it. So yes, my first movie is Charlie Brown's Christmas. s-
Oh, this close to picking Charlie Brown's Christmas myself.
well, thank goodness to heck that one of us did, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, so Charlie Brown Christmas, beyond the fact that all adults mumble and are just basically in the background and you don't really need to pay attention to them that much, it's the premise is that Charlie is sad, he's having the holiday blues, and then he goes to wonderful Lucy, who's a psychiatrist, and gets some great advice for 5 cents, where she says, oh well, direct the Christmas play, and there's foibles and things that go wrong. There's an excellent soundtrack from Vince Guaraldi trio. And anyway, what we really learn here is taking on something that you're not expecting to do, having a lot of criticism and a lot of griping, and not want a lot of people wanting to play along, but you're still responsible for it. When you get it done, it can be magic. So this piece,
it's a beautiful thing, right?
It is. And how often is that we assume responsibility for something, we get it through, and then all of a sudden we look back on it and say, okay, there was a little bit of magic that happened to that evergreen tree. So
you haven't seen it, go watch it. Also, kudos on the soundtrack. It's on my, I don't get, so I know we're doing a festive podcast. I don't get very festive. I'm a bit of a Grinch, but that is on my Christmas playlist, the soundtrack to Charlie Brown's Christmas, because it's full on jazz. It is brilliant. It is a brilliant album, and it's worth listening to on Christmas Day. If you're fed up of Michael Bublé, just hit it.
Exactly. And who isn't? All right, now tell me what's your first movie on your list there, James?
Okay, so this is the one I think I chose before. All right, but I'm going to go with it again because it's such a good movie, which is Trading Places. Right.
Yes, right? Eddie Murphy.
Which is Trading Places. Right. And for anybody out there that haven't seen it, well, where have you been? And I mean, it's pretty old now. It's a good 30 years old, at least, this movie. And it's about this kind of I mean, everyone's basically a con man, basically, in this entire movie. Really, no, there is, but the thing I kind of take away from it, because I'm not going to tell everybody, just go watch the movie. But the thing I take away from it is that too quickly within recruitment, you get recruiters battling against each other. And they get this. You get this kind of and I know businesses like to have this competition run between people, and that's fine. But sometimes that can overrun into kind of, I'm not going to share my candidates. We're not going to share fees. We're not going to share this. And there's a good message within Trading Places about working with people who aren't really your enemies. Actually, they're all kind of pulling in the same direction. And businesses that do that, as well as just recruiters individually, there's a much kind of better. There's a good lesson to be learned there. If you're all kind of pulling in the right direction, don't immediately think that just because someone over there is as another recruiter, that instantaneously your enemy, and that you want to kind of hoard all your candidates. Now, we don't have too much of that anymore, but you still get a lot of that in recruitment. And if that doesn't matter, if you're a recruiter, if you're an in-house recruiter, just kind of hoarding that, actually be a bit more open about it, because basically in the end, everyone's fighting for the same candidates anyway, probably in most cases. So you're better off just kind of realizing and just being better than the other people than necessarily kind of fighting for it. And that's what I'm kind of my slightly abstract connection to Trading Places, but you kind of get my feeling. If you haven't seen Trading Places, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. Okay, but my next ones are great. They're really good, and I've got a feeling, right? I've got a feeling that one of these you're definitely going to have. But go on, give me your kind of second movie.
Okay, my second movie, and this is for total 80s kids. This is does anyone remember Loretta Swit from MASH? No? Maybe? She was the blonde one? So there was a movie called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And I mean, how could you not win with that?
That's so American, basically. I mean, that's surely that doesn't travel well, I can imagine,
What are you saying, man? What are you saying?
Well, because you're the the American is the only country in the world really that has pageants. Really, that makes a thing about it. So
Ah,
that's the thing.
uh, that's a good point. So actually, it's not a pageant like a beauty pageant. So that's
Mhm.
a really good question. It's a pageant like the nativity scene. I think that's basically the only time we use that word
Mhm.
to represent something different.
Yeah,
Good point.
yeah.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
you go.
All
So
right.
tell me about the movie and tell me its kind of connection to recruitment.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, the best Christmas present ever. So here it's about beware of the herdmen. So the herdmans are like the nastiest, dirtiest, evilest little kids you could ever imagine. And they get it into their head that after there was a call out sheet for being in the nativity play, that they are going to take on all the parts. So they do their evil mechanisms, and they get into the play. And poor Loretta Switch, she has to direct it, and all of the infighting, the gossip mongering, and then at the end there is that Christmas miracle. So the story for recruiters is really this piece around, quite often we talk about talents, and there is, I'm sorry, but there are blacklists in terms of, all right, you don't want to hire this, Gen Z or millennials, or, here, you don't want to have anybody over 42. There's all these different things as to, what do you not want to do, because they'll make your life really difficult. So here, the story here for recruiters is sometimes you really need to go outside of that culture fit. You really need to go out of that, tried and true type of talent of, that this formula is going to work. Because if you're really trying to innovate, if you're really trying to do something different and surprising and putting a spin on something that everyone knows, taking a chance on that surprise talent and saying Shazam, you are going to get some good surprises and make some things turn around that perhaps you didn't think would turn around.
Yeah, it's a great message. Yeah, it's a good message to kind of take. So many times in recruitment, that the term culture fit sometimes kind of annoys me a little bit, because I think we can get
Gives
so
me the
absorbed in it.
heebie-jeebies. I
It can
hate it.
we can get so absorbed by that, and sometimes
Yep.
it's like, I'm not really even sure what sometimes like that means. A lot of businesses don't know what that means,
Mm.
and then it feels false if you've kind of like, if you've nurtured this kind of this company culture, you're not feeling a bit like kind of apparently, like Lego have this kind of real kind of weird company culture that,
Mm.
you're
Yeah.
kind of you're part of, and that's where it's kind of gone too far, and you
Yeah.
don't get in unless you kind of fit in, if you're a kind of that kind of person, which I think kind of just narrows your vision, like you said.
Hugely so. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent of absolutely moving as far away from culture fit that as we can. This piece to say, okay, what's culture add? How is someone bringing in themselves to the culture? That it's not that culture of homogeneity, but that really there is a different mix, and that people can have an impact for helping the team move forward.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great message. So my next movie. Now this is I think this tips into the 90s. I think if I'm right, but Batman Returns. Uh,
Oh, going Gotham. Do tell, you dark.
Batman Returns. So yeah, so people do forget it's actually set at Christmas. Who would have thought you'd get Christmas
Mhm.
in Gotham, but you do apparently. You
Mhm.
get it with a liberal kind of dash of Danny DeVito as the Penguin, and a leather-clad Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman.
Oh.
Exactly, and but I think one of the things always kind of about kind of Batman is he's human, right? He's not super.
Mhm.
He's not super powered.
Yeah.
He has the gadgets, but by the end of the movie, they've all gone. All the gadgets have gone. The Batmobile is
Mhm.
trashed. The gadgets gone, and he's just kind of got to rely on his own as being a human, basically. And that's a good thing, I think, that in a recruitment industry, and generally an industry that we kind of work in, there we hear everything about automation and
Mm.
technology,
Yeah.
and the latest gadgets to help you source or recruit or do whatever. That in the end, it's actually a human business. We're after people, and people buy people, and people sell to people, and all the gadgets in the world aren't necessarily ever going to replace that. They can replace some of those processes,
Yeah.
but they're never going to replace that kind of human touch. And that, I agree, is pretty spurious connection to Batman Returns. But, but,
I'm surprised we haven't talked about Die Hard yet. I'm waiting for it.
oh well, this is the thing. I mean, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? I mean, we will get there. We'll handle this at the end. But Batman Returns, it definitely is a Christmas movie. It's got snow and everything, and yeah, and it's about it's a human story, and that's what we want to kind of be in Recruitment, more human. I think let robots do the heavy lifting, and let the humans do the human bit.
No, connect.
Yeah. So movie number 3, Liz.
This is, it's getting tough. So I'm going to, of course, pick A Christmas Story. Yes. So my dad was a huge Gene Shepherd fan. So In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash was something that was definitely on the reading list at our house. And so we saw the movie in like the summertime in July for the first time. And yeah, it's so A Christmas Story. It's about this kid who's in Indiana, and all he wants is for Christmas is a genuine Red Ryder 200-shot carbine action air rifle with a compass in the stock and this thing that tells time. And everyone is telling him that he'll shoot his eye out. And there's a lot of little lessons about growing up and, in the relationships that you have. But one thing that I really liked is he came, his aunt was convinced that he was 9 years old and a girl. And so he got a bunny suit with little bunny slippers then for his birthday. And so this reminded me of oftentimes here in recruiting, how we have personas or we have different ideas as to what does this talent want? Oh, this person's 26, they're living in London, this is what they want. So taking that time and understanding the logarithm is not always going to get it. And taking that time to dig into that person as to what do they really want? What do they really need something for? And understanding those desires rather than just putting a broad brush as to, this is what this group wants.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Too many times we are just kind of, I know I'm guilty of it. You know what I mean? The amount of times I might have said, "God damn millennials" or something, you know what I mean? With their avocados and, everything. But, we're very easy to judge. I mean, I think it's natural. I think as humans, we kind of do that a bit. But in recruitment, we have to try and steer clear and fight that urge as much as possible.
Yep.
And it comes back to the point you made earlier about culture fit, that breaking away from that isn't the worst thing in the world, and trying to look kind of beyond that and not kind of prejudging people as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So with breaking and breaking with traditions,
boy rolls.
Yeah, breaking with traditions is very apt for my next movie. Which is definitely in the 80s, definitely Christmas, but it is a Christmas movie that I think was probably one of the first to kind of really mix up the Christmas movie, and take it in a slightly different direction, and a slightly kind of horror almost, horror.
Nightmare on Elm Street for Christmas version.
Freddy Does Christmas. No.
Exactly.
No, but close. This is a story about a dad who's looking for a present for his son, and he wanders into a little kind of like shop in Chinatown, and picks up this little creature that you can't feed. You can't feed after midnight. You can't get wet because they would turn into gremlins. And if you haven't watched this movie in a while, it is dark. This movie is full on dark. It's really, really, there is, there's violence. There is, I mean, some of the way that kind of these gremlins are taken out, it's pretty spectacular. One gets put in a blender, one gets put in a microwave at one point.
This is the 80s. Everything worked.
But it broke with traditions because it wasn't your kind of like traditional kind of happy Christmas movie. This was full on. And only when I watched it kind of like years later did I get there's a story that I think it's Phoebe Cates tells about why she hates Christmas, because her dad got stuck in a chimney and died in the chimney while dressed as Santa. Right.
Oh goodness.
I know, and if you haven't, I mean, it was lost to me as a child. But
Yeah,
yeah, you watch
yeah.
that back, it's harrowing. Basically, it's harrowing. But back to recruitment. Let's wind this back into
Are you going to say where is Phoebe Cates now?
I don't know. We can probably Google that. That'd be, but it's more about breaking with tradition, basically.
Yeah.
And just because it's done one way doesn't mean
Mm,
it's always got to be done that way.
nice.
And that traditions are really meant to be broken, and pushing those
Hmm.
boundaries is a good thing. Now, that's quite generic, but recruitment goes through phases. It stays still
Mm,
for a very long time. Then something comes along, breaks the tradition, and it moves on. We had it with the internet. We had it with job boards. We had it with kind of with the social media, and every time there's a kind of an iteration. But if you feel that you want to kind of stick with the old traditions, the amount of times I've spoken to recruiters and they've told me that they
mm.
wish they still had Rolodex, and it's like, you got to move with the times. Things change, and breaking those traditions is a good thing. Um, uh, and yeah, so that was kind of really the thought behind Gremlins, is that it kind of pushed the boundaries and it broke a tradition which needed breaking, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Wow.
Okay, so
So if anybody knows that is actually a repeat from round one.
is it? Did it?
Uh-huh. Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Did
We'll
did
have to.
did you say that in the first one? Then did you say Gremlins in the first
Yeah,
one?
and we
Oh,
have
we're all
Gremlins twice up. I mean, it's
uh,
a movie. It is one that we as recruiters can learn a lot from.
yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, everyone. Go find Gremlins on wherever else, where it might be, Amazon or Netflix or Now TV or whichever subscriber system you use. I'm sure my reason was probably different to you also from the original for the first time
Yeah,
around.
yeah, slightly,
Yeah,
completely, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so your final movie, number 4, and we'll talk about some of the ones that didn't make into the list, but your final kind of actual movie.
Thank God, thank God. So yeah, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Wow. I mean, there was a lot of words in there that just didn't really didn't make much sense at all there, basically.
Exactly. So Jim Henson's
Okay.
Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas from 1977. So that's like almost 80s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I am not familiar with this, and I'm a big Jim Henson / Muppets kind of fan,
Mm,
and I'm
yeah.
not familiar with this movie. So you're going to have to kind of bring me up to speed.
Well, happy to jump on that sleigh. So yeah, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas is it's a story of a mom and her son. They're otters, and there is a talent show with a $50 prize, and this $50 would go a long way towards making their lives a lot easier. But what do? They need to, the mom, she has a beautiful singing voice, but she needs a costume in order to get onto the stage, in order to sing. Emmett, he's in a band. It's a jug band, hence the Jug Band Christmas. But he needs to put a hole in the wash tub in order to make a bass, because it's all about the bass. And anyway, this is a wonderful movie. And one of my favorite songs is, of course, from the River Bottom Nightmare Band. So there is a great scene. And so they don't go to the dentist because their toothache helps them stay mean. So yeah, wow. There's all sorts of lessons. So again, back to the playlist. This is a wonderful playlist. I can definitely recommend listening to the songs. But the moral of the story, why are we bringing it in for recruiters, is this piece to say, so finding your talent. So figuring out, what's your dream? What are you willing to hawk? What are you willing to sell in order to make that happen? What are you willing to sell or hawk to make that happen for someone you care about? Because quite often, particularly nowadays, we as recruiters are being asked to use our skills to help our friends out who are looking for new jobs, new positions, which is a great thing. So it's a piece of how are we utilizing our knowledge to help others. At the same time, it's a little bit of a hard thing, because often that's not the direction that we've been looking to do it. We're always looking for people to fit roles rather than roles to fit people. So this is that aspect of, changing your lenses and looking at something out of a different point of view, based upon what the other people need. So
Mhm.
that's a message that I would say us as recruiters, particularly during this time, when people are challenged to say, how do I secure my livelihood? How can we use our skills and our talents a little bit differently to help those around us?
Yeah, it's a great message, and I like that whole thing about the roles for people instead of people's for jobs. I think that's a great message. Um, and I'm not familiar with that movie or the soundtrack, so I'm gonna have to go check that out. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna dig that out somewhere, basically. Okay, so my last one. Huh. So I'm pretty sure this isn't an 80s movie, but it's got to be close. It's Eyes Wide Shut by
Oh,
the late
wow.
great
Okay.
Stanley Kubrick.
Kubrick. Yeah.
Um, and basically, if you haven't watched it, I'm not really sure what it's about. I'm not sure anyone. I'm not really sure. I'm not,
How stable is your marriage is what it's about, right?
yeah, I mean, there is that. But there's a kind of lot of other things kind of going on in there, you know. But
Yeah.
it's a lot to unpack. And it kind of, if you haven't seen it, I mean, I don't know if I can even kind of suggest going to watching it, because it's not the greatest of Kubrick movies. But that kind of is the point: is that you can have all the ingredients, you can have the greatest actors in the world, you can have the greatest director of all time, with great screenwriters, but sometimes you just have a bad day, and it isn't really what you want to kind of isn't what you expected to deliver. But when you look at it as a kind of you look back at someone like Kubrick's kind of as an ensemble piece, all of his kind of body of work, it's a great body of work. There's masterpieces,
It is.
more. There's several masterpieces in there, and you can forgive Eyes Wide Shut, basically. And I suppose what to take from this is that everybody has a bad day. Don't beat yourself up about it. We've all had a bit of a bad year, basically, in some aspect.
True. Yeah.
There are things out of your kind of control. Manage what you can manage. The rest of it, well, you have no control over it. And so if you want to see that embodied into a movie for like 3.5 hours, if you can sit through it, and as well as
like 3 years to film,
something like that, yeah, and a little bit around kind of sexual fidelity, then check out Eyes Wide Shut, with a very weird kind of masquerade ball scene at kind of towards the end, which is I'm still not sure what the hell is going on. So yeah, mine's good, because I don't think anyone's ever going to watch that, because so I could just say anything about Eyes Wide Shut, because I don't think anyone's ever really going to sit through
like
it.
Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
And then they think it's like Days of Thunder, but no, it's not.
No, not at all. No. I mean, don't sit down with Granny to watch this kind of like on kind of over Christmas Eve or something. You know what I mean? It's not kind of one for the whole family, basically.
Yeah.
It's
a different type of racy.
It is, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well done. See, so I'm just going to. There's a couple of movies that I considered that didn't make it onto my list. One is actually one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite Christmas movie, but I didn't want to put it on the list because I found it difficult then just to work it back to Recruitment, which is Scrooged.
Oh, that's awesome! That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Scrooged is I mean anything that Bill Murray touches usually turns to gold.
Exactly.
But this one is brilliant, and I always remember it. There's a great scene in it where he's in a lift, and Death, who's about kind of 10 foot tall, walks into the lift and starts kind of like shuffling up next to him, and Bill Murray just goes, "Back off, big guy. Might work with the chicks, but not with me."
Okay then.
And I just thought that just kind of the ridiculousness of saying that to Death was brilliant. And if anyone hasn't seen it, it's based on a Christmas Carol, kind of set in the modern 80s era. But yeah, I was having trouble kind of connecting that back to Recruitment. My other one, which definitely isn't an 80s movie, was Bad Santa.
Okay.
which I definitely couldn't relate back to Recruitment, but it's a very funny movie if you haven't watched it, so that's worth watching. Did you have any others on your list that didn't make your final list? I'm sure you've got loads. I'm sure you've got loads.
I do. I had to edit. So the other ones were, of course, Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
So John Hughes movie based on the National Lampoon, which was big in the 70s and the 80s. So this dad, the Griswolds they're really trying hard, and the dad really wants to make like the epic Christmas that will fulfill all of his dreams that he remembers fondly from his childhood. And this would totally work out if it wasn't for family.
Mm-hmm. Is it Randy Quaid as his brother, basically? It's
yes,
just
very good.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Randy Quaid does a great job as his brother, and yes, and his brother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
So his brother-in-law is really and the yuppies next door. So they're the best. They are the absolute best. So if you haven't seen it, you have to watch this just to see the interactions with the family. And you will see a couple of cameos. So you'll recognize someone from The Big Bang Theory is part of the cast. So it's quite fun.
Is that John Galecki? Is that one with John Galecki? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Very good. Yeah. Exactly. So the thing where I would tie it back is, this build up to big events. Quite often within recruiting, we used to have these recruiting days or these recruiting fairs, or we would have this big bang in terms of our talent marketing and all this huge buildup. And then when we look at, the KPIs as to what was the conversion rate, it's really, really low. So, and oftentimes taking that time to focus on what's really important and what do you want to really have as a meaningful event that connects with people and what you're trying to do. Oftentimes it's about forgetting the huge fluff around it and making sure that there's time to concentrate on, what do people really need? What does good really look like? And how do we get there? And at times forgetting that all of the headache and the logistics that goes into making this big boom magic that you believe you need. And oftentimes you don't. Yeah. So Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, Christmas Vacation. A great message again. Yeah. Nicely put, and again, a great kind of family movie, a genuinely good family Christmas movie as well, because it's just kind of slapstick fun. Basically, that's But let's kind of just before we wrap up, we have to kind of discuss one thing, which is Die Hard.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, where is it? When is it coming? Like, you went through all of your movies and not once.
I know. So, I mean, I suppose the question that's on everyone's lips is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Is the kind of, it doesn't feel very Christmassy. I don't think there's not really any real references to Christmas in the movie, apart from a Christmas party at one point, which, and obviously, now I have a machine gun as well.
Well, or, he was at Dole's airport on Christmas and, got a parking ticket. Yeah. So, yeah.
But it's very sunny. It's obviously set in kind of LA. So it doesn't feel that it doesn't have the usual tropes of a Christmas movie, but neither does Gremlins, I guess. So I guess we can maybe kind of, I feel that Die Hard 2 is more of a Christmas movie, much more of a kind of a Christmas feel to it.
It does.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Was Die Hard 2 the one with Samuel L. Jackson?
No, that's
Die
Hard 3. Yeah.
Oh my God, am I getting my Die Hard movies
Die Hard's
like
wrong.
mixed
I mean, there's like 5 of them, 6 of them, or something now, isn't it? No.
Apparently, they die hard.
Die harder. That's exactly. It's the clues in the title.
Exactly. Yeah. And apparently, like, this is the family to avoid on Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Don't go near them.
Do not travel. Do not go near them.
Don't hang out with them. I mean, it's like hanging out with Liam Neeson. Everybody gets taken, basically, if you hang out with Liam Neeson.
Well, he was also in a very good Christmas movie called Love Actually.
Oh, God, I suppose someone had to mention it at some point, didn't they? Yeah.
That little Christmas chain link that I made.
Yeah. I was desperately trying to steer clear of kind of Love Actually, if I'll be honest. You
were?
Yeah. Actually, I was. And on that bombshell, Liz, I think we've done enough. I think we've covered Christmas recruiting and whether Die Hard actually is or isn't a Christmas movie, which it probably is. I don't know. Make up your mind, everybody out there. Just go watch it and figure out for yourselves. But Liz, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you have an amazing festive season as well as you can be. Are you locked down over there at the minute, or?
Yep, we're locked down, and I am hopefully not going to be as locked down as I believe I may be locked down. So I'm crossing all my fingers and my toes.
Well, fingers crossed. Have a great Christmas and a happy New Year.
Absolutely, likewise.
And maybe, we said last time we would do it again. So when we do this again, we're going to have to maybe kind of take it to the next level, whatever that level might be. Whether I don't know, but we'll have to do it again sometime in the new year and figure out more spurious ways of connecting movies to recruitment.
I can hardly wait.
So thank you very much, Liz.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it.